I'm Cody Schaefer.
And I'm Miles Griffin, and our presentation today is over the life and accomplishments of Wangari Maathai. Wangari was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She was actually the first African woman to win the award. She was an environmentalist, and she was mainly known for her movement, which is called the Green Belt movement. Some background and early life of Maathai. Maathai was born in 1940 in Nairobi, Kenya. She was born to parents that were peasant farmers, so naturally she grew up in that line of work as well. She spent her early childhood doing chores traditionally done by the Kenyan women, which would include fetching firewood, doing work in the fields, and getting the family's water. Wangari received a scholarship to study at Mount St. Scholastica College in Kansas in biological sciences. Her brother actually suggested she went to school. Kenyan women, it was very rare for them to do that. They normally did the peasant farm work their whole life. So this was a big step for her. She earned a PhD in anatomy at the University of Nairobi. So she excelled in school, and she eventually became the first woman in Central and Eastern Africa to earn a doctoral degree. So she was kind of a groundbreaker for African women. She married a businessman and had 3 children. Eventually, her husband ran for parliament in Kenya, and she helped him campaign. During this campaign, she had noticed villagers and their main complaint of what was wrong, and it was lack of employment. So she had decided that she was going to do her part and try to help to the cause, and she did that by starting a tree planting program.
Okay. Here's a quote from her. It says, so even by starting with such a simple step of just digging a hole and planting a tree, it's like you're planting hope in your life and for all your descendants. And you're saying to yourself, I can always start again. That's a quote from Wangari Maathai from the book The Great Peacemakers. So what she wanted to do, her whole goal, was to plant 1,000 trees in a row. So when looking from above, it looked like a green belt. And she wanted to have rows and rows of 1,000 trees. And to a lot of people, it doesn't sound like a big deal because, oh, she's helping out the environment, that's awesome. But she gave every person who planted a tree 10 cents per tree. And her goal was to help unemployment. So this was her first step towards helping everyone out. So she gave 10 cents per tree, which doesn't sound like a lot, but at the time people were extremely poor, and it helped out in any way. Everyone said she couldn't plant 15 million trees because she wanted to plant 1 tree for every single person in Kenya. And she reached her goal of 15 million trees, which was awesome. She protested in Uhuru Park, which the Prime Minister was trying to build a skyscraper and put up a statue that would have put them in a huge debt. So Maathai and her descendants went into the park and stood and said, no, you're not going to knock this park down, because it was the only natural park left in Kenya. So she was beaten, she was harassed, she was thrown in jail, all to protect this park.
This was also a big reason why she was doing this, was going back to the peasant farm work all the women did. Planting more trees meant more fertile soil, which they could get more food from. The women were in charge of that. And also, more trees was more firewood. So when you had more firewood, deforestation would be a problem for a lot of women, and that would have to change the family's diets, which could lead to malnutrition. So this was her way. As she was climbing up the social ladder and becoming educated, she was giving back to the roots she came from, which was pretty neat. In 2002, Maathai was elected to represent her home region in Parliament. She actually received 98% of her region's votes and gained the title Assistant Minister for Environment and Natural Resources. Her Green Belt movement, or GBM, to date has over 6,000 tree nurseries and more than 30 million trees planted. It employs more than 80,000 people in over 30 African countries, including the US and Haiti. So her plan has gone, it started in our own backyard, actually, the first tree, and it has grown outside of Africa and over into North America as well. Wangari Maathai was an activist who transformed African life through grass and roots activism. And that was a quote from her movement's website at greenbeltmovement.com.
Wangari Maathai won a Nobel Peace Prize, which in itself would make her the greatest peacemaker of all time, because it's such a prestigious award. And she won her Nobel Peace Prize for her contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace. So the crazy thing about Maathai is I like to think that as she started off as a peasant and doing chores, women's chores and whatnot, and she was beaten, she was thrown in jail, and now she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And not only that, she experienced the hard times. A lot of the peace people, they send people out for protests, they send other people to do their work for them. When Mathod went out, she was thrown in jail. She actually experienced the hard times. She led the way for her country, so it was a really big deal. And just in conclusion, some of her accomplishments. She was the first African-American woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize, which is unbelievable. She was the first woman in Central and Eastern Africa to earn a PhD.
Later, she was elected to the Kenyan Parliament and employed over 80,000 people through her Green Belt movement.
And most importantly of all, she helped keep peace in Africa. A lot of people asked, how does building these trees and building the environment help keep peace? And she replied and said, most of the wars that are happening are because of resources, and the resources having low resources or other countries want your resources. So she wanted to, indirectly, she wanted to build up the environment, build up the resources so war wouldn't be an issue or war wouldn't be a problem. So I liked her approach at coming out, instead of going out and doing a lot of nonviolent protests. She came from a different angle. She built up the resources so there would be no war in Africa. So she improved people's quality of life and made it better in Africa. She gave people 80,000 people jobs, which is unreal considering the amount of people with unemployment at the time. She was thrown in jail, she experienced the hard times, and she won a Nobel Peace Prize, which ultimately makes her the greatest peacemaker of all time.
Thank you.